"So, where are my relatives supposed to stay for 3 weeks?" my husband asked. I answered. Since then, his family hasn't set foot in our place. Melissa felt her stomach clench as Greg delivered the news with casual expectation, as if hosting his parents, Beverly and Robert, plus his sister and her 2 teenage kids for 3 weeks was a minor inconvenience rather than a complete disruption of their Seattle home. The annual family reunion had somehow evolved into an assumption that Melissa would provide free accommodation, meals, and entertainment for 5 additional people in their modest 2-bedroom house. "So, where are my relatives supposed to stay for 3 weeks?" Greg asked, his tone suggesting that any answer other than enthusiastic agreement would be unreasonable and selfish. The question hung in the air like a challenge, loaded with years of accumulated resentment about Melissa's failure to embrace his family's expectations about hospitality and sacrifice. Greg's assumption that their home existed primarily to serve his family's convenience revealed how little he considered Melissa's comfort or consent in these arrangements. Melissa's mind flashed through memories of previous family visits that had transformed their peaceful home into chaos central, complete with Beverly's constant criticism of their housekeeping standards, Robert's monopolization of their television for endless sports programming, and Greg's sister treating Melissa like unpaid hotel staff while her teenagers left messes throughout the house. The breaking point had been last Christmas when Beverly had rearranged Melissa's kitchen cabinets without permission, claiming she was helping organize things properly while simultaneously criticizing every aspect of Melissa's domestic management. The violation had felt like an invasion that left Melissa feeling like a stranger in her own home. Greg's expectation that Melissa would simply absorb this inconvenience while working full-time and managing their household alone revealed how completely he'd internalized his family's entitlement to her labor and living space. His inability to even ask rather than announce the arrangement showed how little her opinion mattered in decisions affecting her daily life. The answer Melissa gave would forever change the dynamics of their marriage and Greg's relationship with his family, though she didn't realize it in the moment. Melissa's response came with crystalline clarity, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was about to say. She told Greg that his relatives could stay at one of Seattle's many hotels, or perhaps with other family members who actually enjoyed hosting long-term guests, because their home was no longer available for extended visits from people who treated her like service staff in her own house. Greg's shock was immediate and profound, his face cycling through disbelief, anger, and panic as he realized Melissa wasn't negotiating or seeking compromise. She was establishing a boundary that would require him to choose between his wife's comfort and his family's expectations, a choice he'd successfully avoided for their entire marriage. The conversation that followed revealed years of suppressed resentment about Beverly's constant criticism, Robert's entitled behavior, and Greg's sister's assumption that Melissa existed to facilitate their family gatherings. Each incident Melissa cataloged painted a picture of systematic disrespect, disguised as family closeness that Greg had either missed or chosen to ignore. Greg's attempts to minimize his family's behavior fell flat when Melissa produced her phone, showing him photos of the damage from their last visit, wine stains on her couch, broken dishes from Beverly's helpful cleaning, and the bathroom renovation costs after Robert's DIY plumbing improvements had flooded their upstairs. The revelation that each family visit had cost them hundreds of dollars in repairs and replacements, none of which Greg's family had offered to cover, transformed the conversation from emotional manipulation to financial reality. Melissa's careful documentation showed that hosting Greg's family was literally costing them money they couldn't afford to lose. When Greg suggested they could set some ground rules for future visits, Melissa's response was swift and final. She explained that adults shouldn't need rules to behave respectfully in someone's home, and that his family's pattern of boundary violations proved they weren't capable of being considerate guests regardless of any conditions she might set. Greg's phone call to his mother that evening was brief and uncomfortable, his explanation about hotel arrangements met with Beverly's outraged disbelief that Melissa would deny family access to their home. The conversation Melissa overheard revealed how completely Greg's family had taken her hospitality for granted, treating her refusal as personal betrayal rather than reasonable self-protection. Beverly's immediate response was to call Melissa directly, launching into a tearful lecture about family obligations and Christian values that completely ignored the years of documented disrespect and damage. Her inability to acknowledge any wrongdoing while demanding continued access to Melissa's home crystallized everything wrong with their family dynamics. Melissa's calm recitation of specific incidents, the kitchen reorganization, the bathroom flooding, the criticism of her cooking while eating her food, left Beverly speechless for the first time in their relationship. The detailed accounting revealed behavior that couldn't be defended or minimized, forcing Beverly to confront the reality of how she'd treated her daughter-in-law. The family's decision to boycott Seattle entirely rather than pay for hotel accommodations revealed their true priorities and entitled expectations. Their assumption that Melissa would eventually cave to pressure and resume hosting duties showed how little they understood about her resolve or Greg's need to support his wife over his mother's demands. Greg's initial anger at being forced to choose between his family and his marriage gradually evolved into understanding as he witnessed their reaction to reasonable boundaries. His relatives' refusal to visit unless they could stay in his home rent-free opened his eyes to how they'd been using their relationship for free vacation accommodations rather than genuine family connection. 2 years later, Melissa and Greg were enjoying peaceful holidays in their own home, with Greg's family maintaining distant but polite relationships that respected the boundaries Melissa had established. The house stayed clean, the furniture remained undamaged, and their marriage had strengthened through Greg's commitment to protecting their home from people who couldn't respect basic hospitality guidelines. Sometimes the most effective way to solve family problems was to stop accommodating behavior that created them, even when that meant accepting permanent changes in relationships built on expectation rather than mutual respect.